One quiet morning in Los Angeles, Keanu Reeves, one of the most admired actors in Hollywood, quietly walked into a luxury car dealership. To him, it was just another ordinary day, blending in with the city's usual hustle. But what was about to happen would change everything. No one in the dealership knew who he really was, and when the truth came to light, it would be something surprising, unforgettable. It was a beautiful morning in LA, with a clear blue sky stretching above like an invitation for something special. Keanu strolled through the streets, wearing a simple black leather jacket and worn jeans. His calm demeanor stood in contrast to the admiring glances of a few passers-by who recognized him. He never let fame change him, and with a small smile he waved to a fan here, thanked a compliment there, and continued walking without rushing. Halfway through his walk, Keanu stopped at his favorite cafe, a cozy little spot he had been visiting for years. He greeted the barista Liam by name. "Good morning, Liam. How's everything going today?" Liam returned the smile, his eyes lighting up. "Morning, Keanu. Everything's good, just the usual." Keanu nodded and ordered his usual coffee, simple just the way he liked it. As he waited for his drink, his thoughts wandered. For the past few months, Keanu had been searching for something more than a passing desire. It wasn't just about cars, it was about combining his love for them with something meaningful, a rare car that he could restore and use for a good cause. Maybe it could be donated to charity or serve as a special tribute. He wasn't looking for just any ordinary vehicle. He wanted something unique, something that would make a difference. With his coffee in hand, Keanu continued on his walk. He had a destination in mind, a luxury car dealership famous for selling the most exclusive and expensive cars. It was the place he thought might hold exactly what he was looking for. As soon as Keanu stepped into the dealership, the atmosphere around him was filled with luxury. The floor gleamed, reflecting the bright lights and flawless finishes of the cars displayed. The sound of footsteps was muffled by plush carpeting, and the air carried the unmistakable scent of new leather. Well-dressed employees moved gracefully around the showroom, attending to other customers. But to most, Keanu seemed like just another passerby, unnoticed and unimportant. His eyes, however, were immediately drawn to something, a car in the back of the showroom. It was a rare model, one that seemed to belong to another time. Every detail, the sleek curves, the immaculate paintwork, caught his attention. It was exactly what he had been searching for. Without hesitation, Keanu approached a salesman standing nearby, who seemed preoccupied with his phone. "Excuse me," Keanu asked calmly, "could you tell me more about this model?" The salesman glanced up for just a brief moment, his gaze dismissive. "Hang on, I'll get someone," he replied quickly, walking away without offering much help. Keanu remained where he was, standing quietly and studying the car. But something shifted in the air around him. Soft whispers started to spread among the employees. Curious glances were exchanged, followed by hushed comments. "Does he even know where he is?" one of them muttered. "Looks like he's not buying anything here," another snickered. Even though Keanu could hear them, he chose to ignore the whispers. He wasn't there for their approval, he was there for the car. Soon, the manager of the dealership approached. He walked with a stiff posture and sharp gaze, his movements deliberate. The manager's eyes scanned Keanu from head to toe, studying him closely. The air around them seemed to thicken, filled with silent judgment. The manager finally stopped in front of Keanu and looked at the car, then back at Keanu, sizing him up with a faint smile. "This model is exclusive. Very rare," he said, his tone colder than before, almost like a test. "That's exactly what I'm looking for," Keanu replied, his voice calm but confident. The manager gave him another look, doubtful, slightly disdainful. "Well, I hope you're ready." "This car isn't for just anyone," he said, crossing his arms. Keanu gave a subtle smile, but his eyes remained steady, unwavering. He didn't react, at least not yet. He simply stayed where he was, studying the car. But beneath the polite exterior, a quiet tension grew. The manager, however, took another step back, clearly uneasy. What neither the manager nor the other employees knew was that Keanu wasn't just a casual customer. He was one of the most admired actors in the world, known not only for his talent but also for his integrity and humility. His fame was global, but he never let it change him. And when the truth about who he really was came to light, it would not just be surprising, it would be unforgettable. Keanu continued to admire the car, the smooth bodywork, the gleaming paint, the classic design that spoke of history and elegance. Yet the hostile atmosphere around him didn't seem to match the moment. The stares, the whispered comments, and the glances exchanged between the employees created a feeling of discomfort. Still, Keanu kept his composure. He He knew what he wanted. A few minutes later, the manager returned. His name was Daniel, a man with a rigid posture and sharp eyes. He walked toward Keanu with firm steps, each motion calculated to assert his authority. The air grew heavier with every stride. Finally, he stopped just a few paces from Keanu, his expression stern and unyielding. "Well?" Daniel asked, his tone sharp. Keanu didn't say much. He simply kept his calm smile, but his eyes remained strong. He didn't need to explain himself. He knew exactly what he wanted. Little did they know, Keanu wasn't just anyone. He was far more than that. And when the truth about him finally came out, it wouldn't just be surprising. It would be unforgettable. Keanu stood with his arms crossed, a small smile on his face. It wasn't a polite smile. It looked more like he was challenging someone. The car in front of him was fancy, way beyond what most people could afford. Daniel, the man in charge, walked over, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Nice car, right? Bet you'd like to know more about it," Daniel said, looking Keanu up and down. His eyes stopped on Keanu's jeans and worn-out leather jacket, making it clear he wasn't impressed. "Interesting," Daniel muttered, his voice filled with doubt. "This is one of our most exclusive cars. Not many people even get to see one, let alone own it." Keanu didn't move, but the air between them was starting to feel tense. Daniel stepped slightly to the side, blocking Keanu from getting closer to the car. "Do you know this car costs more than most homes in Beverly Hills? It's not something just anyone can take home," Daniel said sharply. Keanu frowned slightly but kept his tone polite. "I know. That's why I'm here. Could you tell me more about it?" Daniel let out a dry laugh, full of sarcasm. "Look, I don't know how to make it any clearer. This car isn't just a vehicle. It's a symbol of status, success, and exclusivity. People who buy cars like this know exactly what they're doing. And with all due respect, you don't seem to fit that profile." Keanu took a deep breath, trying to keep calm as his discomfort began to change into something stronger, almost like anger. He tilted his head slightly, as if trying to understand what Daniel was saying. "Profile?" he repeated, his voice neutral. "Yes, profile," Daniel said firmly. "Our cars aren't just cars. They're symbols. Symbols of wealth and success. And sorry to say that doesn't seem to align with, well, you," he said, waving his hand toward Keanu's clothing. The room went silent for a moment. Some employees stopped what they were doing to watch, while others pretended not to hear. Keanu didn't say anything right away. He just stared at Daniel for a long moment, as if thinking carefully before speaking. "You seem to know a lot about people just by what they're wearing," Keanu said calmly, but his words were firm. "That says more about you than it does about me." Daniel narrowed his eyes, clearly irritated by the response. He stepped closer to Keanu, lowering his voice but keeping the sharp edge in it. "Listen here, buddy. I see people like you all the time. They come in, look at the cars, dream a little, and then leave without spending a dime. If you're just here to play pretend, I'll ask you not to waste any more of my time, or my team's." Keanu didn't move, but his posture changed slightly. It wasn't just patience anymore, there was a quiet determination in his eyes. "What if I'm not here to dream?" he asked simply. Daniel let out a short laugh and shook his head as if the idea was ridiculous. "Then I'd say you're in the wrong place. This place is for people who can pay, who have something to prove. Honestly, you don't look like you have either." The air between them grew heavier, almost suffocating. Keanu looked at Daniel for a few more seconds. His discomfort had now turned into something stronger, something closer to indignation. He gave a slight smile, though it wasn't a happy one. It was the kind of smile that made it clear he understood who he was dealing with. "I always thought the real luxury was treating people with respect," Keanu said, his voice calm but cutting. "Maybe you should think about that." Keanu stood firm, his eyes locked on Daniel, who now radiated anger and contempt. The tension in the room was thick, and the employees and customers nearby couldn't hide that they were watching. Daniel's tone grew sharper, almost desperate to win this argument to prove he was in charge. "People like you only come here to waste everyone's time," Daniel said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "This isn't a stroll through the park, and it's definitely not a place for dreamers with worn jackets and empty pockets." Keanu tilted his head slightly, studying Daniel with a calm but penetrating gaze. He took a deep breath before replying carefully. "Funny you talk about wasting time when you're so busy judging others by what they wear instead of who they are. Maybe you should think about what really matters." Daniel's face flushed with frustration. He stepped forward, invading Keanu's personal space. "Oh, I know exactly what matters," he snapped, venom in his voice. "It's not moral lessons from someone who thinks they have the right to walk in here like they belong. You don't know who you're dealing with. But Keanu didn't flinch. He held his ground, his gaze locked with Daniel's. The tension only grew stronger and Daniel could feel it. Losing control, he raised his fist in a rash attempt to intimidate Keanu, or maybe even to hit him. But Keanu responded swiftly, with the calm of someone used to tense situations. He raised his hand and caught Daniel's fist midair. The movement was firm but not aggressive, a gesture of restraint, not retaliation. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Daniel stood still, stunned that his attempt had been so easily stopped. The showroom fell silent, all eyes fixed on what was happening. Keanu looked directly into Daniel's eyes, his expression carrying something deeper. He didn't seem angry, but there was an almost unsettling strength in his voice when he spoke. The anger you're feeling has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's time to look inward and deal with that before you take it out on others. Keanu released Daniel's fist with the ethane calm he had used to stop it. The manager stepped back, clearly shaken, but tried to keep his composure. Keanu adjusted his jacket slightly and cast one last look at Daniel. Respect doesn't cost a thing, but for some people, it seems harder to find than any car in this place. Without waiting for a response, Keanu turned and began walking toward the exit. The showroom was silent, save for the sound of his footsteps. The employees and customers stood frozen, some still holding their breath, unable to believe what they had witnessed. Then something caught Keanu's attention. In a corner of the dealership, a young man was holding up his phone, recording. He hadn't just caught the final interaction, but everything that had happened. Keanu paused for a brief moment and locked eyes with the young man, who looked nervous but determined. The man gave Keanu a small nod, silent solidarity. Keanu responded with a faint smile, almost unnoticeable, before walking out through the glass doors and disappearing into the sunlight. Inside the dealership, Daniel struggled to regain his composure. But the silence around him and the accusing stares from his employees made it clear something had changed. The video wouldn't stay hidden for long. By the next morning, the world knew the story. The footage went viral on social media, shared by thousands of people outraged by the way Keanu Reeves had been treated. The contrast between a man known for his kindness being humiliated by someone so arrogant was striking. The video began with Daniel, the manager of a high-end car dealership, ignoring Keanu Reeves and making rude remarks. Daniel didn't seem to care who Keanu was. He treated him like any other customer, dismissively and disrespectfully. However, things took a dramatic turn when the manager attempted to confront Keanu physically. But to everyone's surprise, Keanu handled it with an unsettling calm. He deflected the manager's actions easily and without raising his voice, responded with a simple yet powerful line. Respect doesn't cost a thing, but it seems rarer than any car here. That line immediately went viral. It spread across social media, appearing in memes, posts, and even making its way to news headlines. People couldn't believe how someone could treat Keanu like that. Someone who is widely regarded as one of the kindest and most humble actors in Hollywood. Online comments were relentless. How could they talk to Keanu like that? He's literally one of the nicest guys in the industry. That manager clearly thinks he's superior. What a disgrace to the dealership. Keanu is always handling arrogant people with such grace. Absolute legend. This should be a lesson never to underestimate people, no matter how they look or what they have. News blogs and media outlets quickly latched onto the story. It wasn't just about disrespecting a customer, it was about disrespecting one of the most respected actors in the world. The public narrative began to shift. People started criticizing the dealership for its elitist, prejudiced practices, and soon social media pages were flooded with negative comments. People were calling for explanations, apologies, and even boycotting the dealership altogether. It was clear that this incident was more than just a simple misunderstanding. It exposed deeper issues within the business, and the public wasn't going to let it go. Daniel tried to justify his actions, but every statement he made only made the situation worse. His explanations were filled with weak excuses and showed no genuine regret. It was a misunderstanding, he said. I didn't immediately recognize Mr. Reeves, and my behavior was misunderstood. But the public wasn't buying it. They saw right through his words. The outrage was unstoppable. Employees at the dealership, fearing for their jobs, began speaking anonymously to the press, confirming that Daniel had always treated people poorly, no matter if they were rich or poor. He thought he was better than everyone else, one employee said. This only fueled the fire of public anger, and soon the dealership began to face serious consequences. Clients began to pull out, sales dropped, and the reputation of the dealership quickly turned toxic. No one wanted to be associated with a place where customers were treated without respect. The situation had become a major crisis, and the once busy dealership became eerily quiet. As the world buzzed with the incident, Keanu Reeves chose to stay out of the spotlight. He didn't want to fuel the situation further. He was quiet and thoughtful, reflecting on what had happened. Keanu knew this wasn't a one-time incident. Prejudice and mistreatment based on looks, social status, or financial standing were far too common. He didn't want this to just be another scandal that faded away. He wanted to turn it into something meaningful, something that could inspire change. One afternoon, Keanu decided to return to the Ethan dealership. Though this time, it wasn't about getting revenge. It was about making sure the situation turned into a lesson, not just for Daniel but for everyone working there. There was no fanfare, no security guards, and no cameras following him, just his calm, quiet presence. But as soon as he stepped inside, it was clear the entire dealership recognized who he was. The employees froze, some looking nervous, others filled with shame. Daniel, the manager, stood behind the counter, visibly tense. His once confident posture was now gone, replaced by hesitation. His face was pale and he looked smaller. He seemed afraid. Keanu walked over to the Ethan car that had first caught his eye. He placed his hand on the body of the vehicle, running his fingers over its surface. He studied it, but this time the tension wasn't in the car, it was in the air. Daniel couldn't take his eyes off Keanu. His gaze was filled with fear and regret. Finally, Daniel mustered enough courage to approach. His voice was low, shaking slightly. "Mr. Reeves, I want to apologize for what happened. I think we got off on the wrong foot and I hope we can start over. Perhaps I could show you the car that caught your eye." Keanu turned slowly and looked directly into Daniel's eyes. His tone was calm but firm. "Start over?" Keanu asked, his voice clear. "I'm not sure you understand, but the problem here isn't just how you treated me, it's how you treat people. It doesn't matter if they're rich or not. You think you're better than everyone else?" Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He couldn't defend himself. Keanu stepped back, still holding Daniel's gaze. "Respect isn't something you bargain with. It's not something you give to people only when you think they deserve it. Either you have it or you don't." Daniel tried to speak again, but Keanu raised his hand slightly, signaling that he should listen. "I came here looking for something special, something that has meaning to me. But what I found was something that can't be fixed with an apology. That's why I won't be buying this car, not from this dealership." The weight of Keanu's words hit hard. Daniel seemed to shrink even further. The other employees and customers in the dealership stood in complete silence, listening. Keanu continued, "True luxury isn't about fancy cars or expensive things. True luxury is how you treat others with dignity. And unfortunately, that seems rarer than any model you have in this showroom." With those words, Keanu walked out of the dealership, leaving behind a heavy silence. Days after the incident, the video kept spreading on social media, but now people weren't just talking about the disrespect. They were discussing how Keanu had transformed it into a meaningful lesson. He had taken something negative and turned it into something positive, something that could inspire real change. Keanu didn't want the story to end with just his visit. He believed in doing something that would truly make an impact. So he found a smaller, more humble dealership where the people there treated everyone with kindness and respect. It was run by a middle-aged man named Ethan, who greeted every customer with a genuine smile. Keanu found the car he was looking for, and they helped him with warmth and without judgment. Afterward, Keanu posted a photo online with a simple caption, "True luxury is being treated with respect." That post went viral again, but this time it wasn't just about the car. People started noticing a different kind of dealership, a place where dignity was placed above everything else. Customers flocked to the Ethan shop, drawn by the idea that everyone, no matter who they were, would be treated kindly. Keanu's gesture sparked a global movement. People began sharing their own stories of discrimination and unfair treatment. Countless campaigns promoting respect and inclusion emerged. Businesses started changing the way they interacted with customers, and even luxury car brands began adopting kinder, more inclusive messaging, worried about the Ethan kind of crisis that had hit Daniel's dealership. Meanwhile, the original dealership where it all began continued to face severe consequences. Daniel was fired after an onslaught of criticism and the loss of numerous clients. The place underwent a major restructuring, but the damage to its reputation was already done. People didn't want to go somewhere where customers were treated poorly. The incident became a cautionary tale for businesses, a clear reminder of the importance of treating others with respect. Keanu didn't want this to be about him. He knew that this wasn't just about one bad incident, it was about something bigger. "I never wanted this to be about me," Keanu said with his usual humility. It's not about who I am or what I do. It's about how we treat each other. Respect isn't something that depends on how much money you have or who you are. It's a basic right. Everyone deserves it. When asked what he had learned from the experience, Keanu smiled slightly and responded, I've learned that even difficult moments can be opportunities for change. Respect doesn't cost a thing, but when we give it, we create something that can transform the world. The car Keanu bought was restored and eventually auctioned off at a charity event, raising millions of dollars for causes that promoted equality and inclusion. During the event, Keanu gave a short but unforgettable speech. This car was just an object until this story unfolded. Now it carries something far more valuable, the lesson that we all have the power to inspire change as long as we're guided by respect. The evening ended with loud applause, not just for Keanu but for the message he had shared with the world. The incident, which began with prejudice and disrespect, had transformed into something much bigger, a story of inspiration and hope. Keanu showed that even in difficult moments, it's possible to act with dignity and turn negativity into something positive. The world moved on, but the lesson remained. Even in the simplest moments, respect is what truly defines us. If you enjoyed this story, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories. I'll see you in the next video.